Get back to the... All right.
How could it possibly do that again?
I'll put it like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to call about that. I called the co-op today. It isn't wildly expensive, but it sure doesn't fit into the budget. It was a bigger letdown than I thought, not being able to just sign up on the spot. It gets so lonely here sometimes. And I think Tommy's starting to feel it too. We try to play with him every day, and the woods here are pretty magical for someone his age. But kids need to be around other kids sometimes. He can only play with his cars so often. Sometimes I wish there were actual neighbors here. The only friend he's made is Davy, but seeing them at the park once in a while isn't the same as having someone to pal around with every day. It's summer vacation, and he's pretty much all alone. The entire world's out there.
Is there something out there?
We've been back from camping for 3 days, and I'm still buzzing. Before we left, I did some research and found 2 great hikes, and I put together enough food for us to cook every meal with a real fire instead of having to worry about hiking back to the car or going into Prineville for supplies. It was just what I needed. Sleeping under the stars, swimming in the lake, exploring new trails, even drinking a few beers by the campfire. Not a soul around but us.
I already played with it.
What about your rocket?
Here we go.
How's it going, Tommy?
Pretty good.
It's not that I don't like having fun, it's just there's a rhythm to writing, a routine, muscle memory.
trying to keep notes in a notebook isn't the same as sitting down to a blank page and feeling the silence, knowing that you've got to make that typewriter make some noise. There's certainly something to be said for getting away from your work for a bit, but there's no getting away from the book this late in the game. Only a feeling that you're not working as hard as you should be. There's a busted mailbox on Bypass 66 to prove it.
And when I finish my book in December,
Don't joke like that.
And when I finish my book in December,
Okay. I only met Rick once, at a family reunion that must have been, what, 15 years ago? Turns out he made his fortune by, get this, selling high-end pipes. The Sherlock Holmes kind, not the plumbing kind. He must have been a hell of an interesting guy. I mean, he found a niche and made his way in the world. You have to respect that. It makes me wonder, am I giving everything I have to this book, or am I leaving myself an out? It isn't announced yet. I could always pull the plug. I'd never get another advance again, sure, but there isn't a gun to my head. Unless I put one there. Metaphorically, of course.
Anne, I'm going to cut right through the pleasantries and ask you, who is this Ryan that Mom mentioned on the phone? Someone new? Are you trying to keep it a secret, or did it just slip your mind the last time we talked? Spill it! Things here are moving along, I guess. When we came up, I thought it would be great to have more dedicated time to paint, but I didn't realize it would be so isolating. I miss having more people around and having new ideas floating about. I got lucky in town last week, though. I found an artist co-op called Makeshift, and it seems really interesting. It's not too big, but there are lots of different types of artists there. I'll probably call and try to get more details. I don't remember if I told you this, but I've been thinking about going back to painting full time. Anyway, enough about me. Tell me what's up with you. Love, Linda. Hey, you. Barb, sorry it's been so long since I've written. Things have been hectic around here, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get things back on track. I don't really want to get into it, but we're getting pulled in a lot of different directions right now. Nothing hurtful, just competing priorities, I guess. Although those can get worse and worse over time. I mean, Dan and I, before we got up here, you know we'd started to drift. Look at that. I said I didn't want to get into it, and I did anyway. Enough about me. Please tell me you're doing well, and I hope this doesn't stress you out too much. I promise to write a happier letter soon. Yours always, Linda. It'll be fun. Having fun? Uh-huh.
Alan, this letter might come from out of the blue, but do you remember when you told me about Bobby falling behind on reading? Looks like we're there with Tommy. We knew he was struggling when we came up here, but his teacher gave us a list of books for him to work on over the break and said we should see how he responded to the change in environment. She gave us a few sample readings and told us to keep an eye on how he was grasping the concepts. Tommy still isn't there, and long story short, the pediatrician in town knows a specialist who gave us some exercises to try. They seem pretty straightforward, but I wanted to write and see if you had any tips that helped you guys with Bobby. Damn. Just realized I didn't even ask how you've been. I'm sorry. This stuff is just a lot to think about. Dan.
Gotta spend more time together.
Time. Guess it'd all be easier if I'd never have to sleep. Last night after Linda went to bed, I spent some time, there's that word again, trying to make everything fit. I even drew up a little chart. The math is simple. It doesn't work. Technically, I could still get in 8 hours, assuming I don't eat or need to do anything that's not writing. But what about letters, reading, dealing with Paul? Hell, what about doing the dishes or taking out the trash? Not to mention that knocking off for the day isn't like flipping off a switch. It takes time to crawl out of my head and start functioning like a normal person again. And I can't just split it up into smaller chunks. Sometimes it takes an hour of false starts just to get going on anything usable, and stopping just sends the whole process right back to square one. Something's got to give.
I gotta.
Huh?
You saw it, right? Seriously? It's right there.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, Tommy.
That was not just in my head. We barely talked yesterday.
Wow, you're right. I guess we've just been so busy.
Stared at a blank canvas again today. Got a few strokes in, but I don't like any of them, and I'll probably paint over them tomorrow. It's so frustrating going into that room every day and trying to keep working. It's easy to get out of the house for errands or go for a hike, but none of that helps the work as much as being around other artists. I'm not going to give up. Maybe I can use this feeling in my new piece. Definitely. I'll try that out tomorrow. Honey, listen to me. You
Will
are
it make me
smart.
smarter? Will it make me smarter?
Honey, listen to me. You are smart.
It was like...
That might work.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped. I just...
Whoa.
The ad ran today. Picked up the latest issue in town. I don't know if it'll amount to anything sales-wise, but that's not the point. I'd forgotten how scary it was to put your work out there and promise something to people, and that brought it all into focus. It's so different thinking about the book as something I eventually have to sell people, not just something I'm working on for myself. But now it's out there. It's terrifying and irreversible. People know about the book, and to them it's exactly what they want it to be. Some finished, beautiful thing. If only they could see it right now. A bunch of jigsaw pieces on the floor. And I've got to put them all together.
Dan and I had a good conversation today. Well, we'll have to wait and see if it was actually good, but I feel like I got my point across about family time. We've been getting a little frayed on the little things lately, and it reminded me of something Anne said one time. Love is a behavior, not an emotion. If something's important to you, you show it with your actions. We weren't doing so well with that before we got here. I told Dan my idea. I want us all to eat together at 7 every night, with family time after that. Tommy's wiped out by 8:30, so we'd get a solid hour and a half as a family, and then Dan and I could have the rest of the night to ourselves. And I think 7's a reasonable request. The rest of the working world knocks off at 5, right? It doesn't really matter what we do with the time, just that we spend it together. It's easy to make excuses when you've got a lot going on, which is why patterns help. I hope he feels the same way. Hmm?
Working.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, really good. Thanks for asking.
Can Davy sleep over?
Let me call his mommy.
Whoa, it's messed up again. Why'd it do that? Blast off! Phew. Phew. Phew.
Hey, hun, what you doing?
Blasting off.
I thought Tommy was sleeping with us.
I'm checking to see if this is a fold-out. We just put Tommy down, and then we watched Alfred Hitchcock Presents. It was the one where the guy thinks a snake is on his stomach under the sheets, and they spend the whole episode trying to figure out if he's right or not. Dan hates snakes, so we were both holding each other, scared to death. It was great to have a normal evening again. We've been sticking to the 7 o'clock rule, and I can tell it's making a difference. We've started planning our days around making sure to be there, and we even have a new tradition. When we sit down, we each tell the family the best thing that happened to us that day. It's a small thing, but sometimes the small things can make a big difference.
Whoa, it's messed up again. Why'd it do that?
Okay. Yeah. Is that it?
It'll be a little crowded.
You can sleep with us.
What about Tommy?
You can sleep with us. The new schedule isn't as bad as it could have been. At least I'm getting 2 blocks of quiet time every day, though of course they're not as long as I wish they could be. And the sound of those doors closing is my favorite thing to hear these days. It's almost Pavlovian how that doorknob clicking shut puts me into a writing space. I'm not crazy enough to think there's anything mystical going on, but there's something to be said for developing a habit. I took Tynan up on the book jam. He hasn't seen a word of my new book, and fresh eyes are priceless. He bailed me out on Tramer's Way. I hope he understands how much of that book worked because of him. I still remember when we were walking to the pond, and he had the idea about using newspaper clips and police reports. Of course, no matter how many times I tell interviewers it was his idea, they just keep giving me the credit. Maybe they just want the tidy auteur version. Oh well, can't change that. Let's just hope he has an idea for this one too. Friday can't get here soon enough. Huh?
Oh, I hope they're okay.
How's my little man?
Pretty good. Good news. Mom called today with a change of plans. They made better time on the first leg of the trip than they expected, and they're coming to visit. Bad news, they want to come this weekend. Did Dan tell Tynan they could stay here for sure, or is that still up in the air? I'll ask after dinner. She sounded cheerful enough on the phone, though I can't help wondering if they took this trip because they hit another rough patch. I hope not. I hope they just want to see Tommy and have a classic Mears family feast, though maybe seeing how they've ended up will be good perspective for Dan and me. Speaking of which, Dad better not get nosy. I've told him 1,000,000 times that my marriage is not his business. Maybe I'll try the thing Christine told me. When someone asks you something private, just say, "Why do you ask?" Put it back on them and see if they've actually got a reason to get into your business. Yeah, I've got to remember to try that. We'll see how he answers that one.
Hey,